Hi, I'm back, and in the last video we were talking about what all of the pieces did. So if you don't remember, you might want to go back and watch it again because I'm not going to do as much describing in this. So I made the pieces look a little bit cooler. And so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to do a run through of a game. So let's do a run through of a quick chess game. So you can start with anything, but in this video I'm going to be going over what are the best things to start with. Now, if you're a beginner, you want to have one of the strong openings, or that's what they're called, the first few moves in a game, and you want to have more strong moves because if you're against someone who's played before, you want these certain small details that can help you greatly in the beginning. So here's the strongest chess opening. So you see the king is right here, the pawn in front of the king, moving double forward. Now what does this accomplish? First of all, you have a spot in the middle of the chessboard. So you see this square, this square, this square, and this square are considered the middle of the chessboard. And those four squares can be very useful to conquer, have a spot on, and you want to make sure you have that. So when you have pieces on there, for example, the knight, that's the bishop. But when you have pieces in the middle, for example, the knight has a lot of places it can move, and it can pretty much move in a direction, almost. So a lot of space is covered, even with the pawn. If you have two pawns here, this square, this square, this square, this square, this square are all covered. If anything steps here, this pawn will take it. 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 So you'll have all this ground to cover, and it's usually very useful to have that. But also, you have the option of moving your queen all of these squares. So your queen can come out whenever she likes. So whenever you feel that you want to move out your queen, if anything gets in the way here or that, just take it. So that could be useful. Same thing with the bishop. You can go all the space, and so it opens both the queen and the bishop. And in case someone tries to attack your king, he has somewhere to move, and he has two pieces to defend him, three actually, because the knight can come out here now if it likes. So it's fairly easy to move around with this opening. So when you first move, I'd highly recommend moving this pawn. It's in front of the king, remember that. Two spaces forward. And whoever you're playing, you can always ask them which one is the pawn of the queen. It's an honest mistake. So let's say you do that. Now, if your opponent is a pretty advanced player or they've been playing for a while, they're open with this. Because they get the same goals as you. They also get a spot in the middle. So what can you do now? Well, there's several things. You might want to start developing. So developing is when you move your less important pieces out so they're into the game. For example, these two knights and this bishop, you might want to get them out. Because when they're behind the pawn wall, which is these pawns, they can't do much. So you want to make sure they're out in the game. So I'd start with this one because now you're challenging this pawn and they have to try and defend it somehow, because if you take it, they lose their spot in the middle, and you also get your knight in the middle and fairly close to all these spots. So what could you do next? Well, of course they need to move. So let's say they try to do the same thing. Now, if they try to do the same thing, it's a very big mistake because they've offered you a chance to move out your bishop here. So you might want to count. So 1, 2, 3, 4 squares, and 1, 2, 3. So 3, 4 if you can read a graph. If you haven't done that before, it's okay. But you want to move out your bishop. A good way to remember is knight is in moving distance. It's 1 square away from the pawn. And so move your bishop out. So yeah, it's a big bummer. They're going to take this piece because you just lost a pawn. But here's something very advanced, so I want you to pay attention pretty carefully. So now you can take this pawn. So if you want to see that, take that pawn. So right now there have been 2 captures. Actually 3. We've taken this piece, and they've taken our piece, and we've taken this pawn. Now, right now they're in a perilous position because you can come down and take their queen at the same time you can come down and take their rook. And their king, their only spot on the board that can do anything about this is the king, and he can't take it because you have a bishop here. If he takes that, well, he can't. It's against the rules to put yourself in check, or in other words, put your king in a position where they can be captured unless there's nothing else you can do, which in case would be called checkmate. I'll go over that later in another episode. So the king can't take it. So now what what the opposite team is most likely going to do is going to move their queen, because in most situations your queen is more important than your rook. And even though you'll be able to capture their rook, you want to make sure your queen doesn't die. So you can put it in a position like that, or they would probably move it out. Nonetheless, they might move it here. So then you're in free charge to take this rook, and they can't do anything. Remember, your pawns cannot move backwards. They can only move forward. And if we were to play on this side of the board, this is backwards for the pawn. So they can't take this piece, and nothing can do nothing about it. Also, this piece, all of these places, and all of these faces are off limits, so the bishop can now take it. So let's go back to when our piece was, where was it? Here. And just go back a little bit. Oh, this piece is gone. So black's choice to take this piece led into a lot of problems, because then we were able to take this. Sorry, they had a rook. And we were able to take that. This knight can't really do anything. They could try and do the same thing, but I mean, if they did that, what much would it achieve other than getting their queen taken? So even though, let's say they came down and did the same thing, so we can take their queen, and you don't want to lose your queen. Then again, they can take ours because it's their turn now. But I mean, we take their knight, they take our knight. We both just lost the same amount of pieces, except I have a bishop out. I have a bishop in, and they have nothing, and our pieces are relatively the same. Now, of course, they could bring a bishop out if they really wanted to, but then we're just going to go like that, move a pawn forward. It's very simple. So you might want to rewatch this video if you didn't catch that moving those pieces. If you didn't catch that, sorry, I'm just resetting the board. If you didn't catch how to do that, you can watch this as many times as you need to. Now, if you're a beginner, it's okay. I understand if you don't understand, because you're a beginner and it's hard to understand these things all at once. But once you get more advanced, it's always good to know how to do these kinds of things. So in the next episode, I think I might go over something called Fool's Mate. And you guys will probably like that because it's very easy, and your opponent probably won't know that you know it, because if you're a beginner, they will not expect you know Fool's Mate. So when we go over that, you can pay attention pretty closely. I'll see you next time. See ya.